this one. Hey folks, welcome to another Conversations That Matter. My name is Brittany Butler.
And I'm Michelle Treese. And we're really excited to have our guests today. They are two of my really good buds. And I think this is going to be one of the best shows we've had.
Nice.
So we're going to get you guys to introduce yourself. Who's going to go first?
I'll go first. This friend over here. My name is Anthony Jones. Originally from Danville, Illinois, by way of Champaign, Illinois, where I ran track and went to the University of Illinois, and moved here in 1997 to train as a professional track athlete to try to make the 2000 Olympic team. And after that, I retired and had stints in Children's Services, DCS, Woodbridge Hospital, and now I'm currently employed at Science Hill as a graduation coach.
Okay.
And I'm Jamie White. I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. I moved here in 98. So I've been here over 30 years, and I have had a variety of things, experiences in my life, jobs, but fell in love with English, and while working for a grant writer for the Girl Scouts, I realized that I had a calling to be a teacher. Went back and got my degree in that, and now I am a teacher at Science Hill High School.
Wow. Okay, first of all, Jamie, I've known you for a long time. I didn't know you were that big into grant writing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't that fancy,
But still, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. So both of you guys are from not Tennessee. So my first question is, where in the world, not where, how and why are you here?
You want to start?
Okay, I can start. I moved here with family in 98 and really fell in love with the area. I love the outdoors. It's beautiful. I like being on the water, doing fun things like that. And then when it came time to go to college, East Tennessee State University was in state tuition, so it made sense to stay here. And I really loved my time there.
And for me, after 96 Olympic trials, I almost made the Olympic team. And I was like, do I continue? So the guy who was coaching me, assistant coach at Illinois, Ron Garner, said, I need to give this one more shot. So let me get you with a group in Johnson City, Tennessee. And back then it was MapQuest. So me trying to travel in a Buick LeSabre with a TV and a pair of spikes from Illinois to Johnson City is what brought me here. And unfortunately, at the Indoor Nationals, I failed in the 60-meter finals and tore my quad. So I had to retire and think about life, where life was going to take me. So I decided to stay here to get my feet in a career, and I'm still here 27 years later.
And what were the events that you made?
In college, I did all the sprints, relays, but my focus was 100 meters. Was the 100 meters,
Nice.
and so that was career ending. It was sad, but I had another calling, which was to impact the lives of young people, and that's what I love to do today.
Now, when you were going through the Olympic trials, did you run with any people that we would know of today?
Yes. My idol back then was Carl Lewis, and so I got a chance
Go
to
ahead.
run against Carl Lewis twice at the Texas Relays in '96 and again at the Olympic trials in '96. Of course, I didn't make it in 2000, but to just be in that arena with them, and the best part of that was in '96 at the Indoor Nationals. I was between both world record holders, so Leroy Burrell and Mike Marsh, 100 and 200 world record holders, and I almost beat them. So going into the Olympic trials, I was like, I now know I can run with the best, and so getting a chance to get that close, almost making it, I was like, another 3 years, because I stayed another year in Champaign. I said, you can see how this might turn out, and so unfortunately, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but I'm thankful for coming to this area, which was very strange back then.
That's our next question.
So, but right now, I love what I do, and I love the area. So.
Yeah. So moving into this area, what's one of the adjustments you had to make or come to the realization about, okay, this is where I live now? Because that's a little different from Illinois and Philly. Woo.
Yeah, so Philadelphia area down to East Tennessee in the late 90s, I mean, what it is today was nothing like this. There was no Boones Creek. That was literally all farmland. There weren't any of these big developments anywhere. It was very open and rural. And so honestly, the thing I missed the most was different ethnic foods. Oh my gosh, there Indian food, Chinese food. We were just talking about the fact that, now you go everywhere, there's an Amigos on every corner, which is great, because I love it. But back then, you just didn't have that.
Wow.
And so, or even really good pizza. One good pizza shop. So for me, it was all about the food. And I lived here for a long time before I saw anybody different. And it was a big adjustment, because I wasn't used to that.
And for me, I grew up in Danville, which was like a smaller version of Johnson City, Tennessee. So I was not a Chicago native. So Champaign being farmland, cornfields, and so it sort of felt like home a little bit, but lit up in the mountains, But I will say, when I finally got here, after 1,500 pages of MapQuest, and I was at McDonald's down at ETSU, and my roommate that I came, who ran track at Illinois, my best friend, Rod Tober, I followed him to the apartment, and I almost wrecked 5 times, because I'm like, where am I at? Pounds, 3 fries, a straw, and a butt end of a hamburger. And I called my grandmother and said, this ain't gonna work. And she said, I said, yes, but this is not gonna work. They got a Pals, and I stayed away from this until I got the chance to have those Fridgy fries. And so I got stock in Pals, And so, but I think, going to Walmart, and seeing, I got a chance to see someone that looked like me, and when I heard them speak, you speak country, and so I had to realize I had to adapt to this in order for me to do what I needed to do, which was try to make the Olympic team. So I wasn't really in a lot of lanes of maneuvering other than working and training, and so since then, with the changes, like first time going to Gatlinburg, a one-way little strip for 1,500 miles, I'm like, where am I at? I thought Bowmantown, because I used to work for DCS, I had the case, I thought Bowmantown was a suburb. And he said, the fence, the cow, turn left at the barn, and you'll be at the trailer. And so I've seen a lot of good changes, for the area, but and it still has me here. So,
wow, that's interesting.
I saw that purple cow in Kingsport. I was like, what in the world?
Now, Brittany's not from here either, so I think Brittany had that same kind of experience of getting used to this area.
Yeah, very sure. Yeah. So
It's so different.
I was like, what is going on? I had a panic attack. I did. I was crying in Meadowview with my husband saying, well, I can't live here. But it's okay. It worked out. I'm not leaving. Same thing. I'm saying.
There you go. I know I'm from an hour away, Morristown. Small little town. We had 2 high schools. That was different from what we got here, but small town. And so coming to Johnson City for college was like, I'm in a big town.
Right.
And it was like when you moved here, I was here 20 years before you got here. Yeah. And there was nothing past, honestly, I'm thinking like a hospital. Just that whole way, just nothing. That state of Franklin by ETSU, never was it like that. And so I've seen a lot of changes in the area, and I'm not happy with the traffic anymore.
I complain about it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm from the city. I used to
I
have no problem sitting for an hour going a mile. But here, where I have to be behind somebody, traffic light, I get so annoyed.
If I have to wait through 2 lights at a traffic light, I am mad. I am mad because it's too much. It's just too much. So, oh my gosh. Well, so now you guys are here and you're both at Science Hill.
I know. So tell us about these high school students. They're our future, right?
Because you're sending your kids to Brittany at ETSU. Yeah. So what about these kids?
I've got seniors. I teach seniors. So to me, they're practically adults. I call them almost adults. And my kids are good. They're smart. They engage in a lot of conversations. They think about things. and also shocked at some of the things they don't know. Because, kids are different these days. And you're like, what do you mean you didn't know you were supposed to memorize your social security number? Like, I don't understand why you don't know your address, right? Because they don't memorize things the way we did back in the 80s, where, it was written on all your clothes and you had to remember
inside your hat.
Or you weren't getting picked up. So it's very different, but they're pretty savvy kids, and I think that we do a good job of graduating kids that are ready to move on to the next step, whether it's college or the workforce or whatever.
Yeah. And I think with me,
and kind of explain your position.
Yeah, my role as a graduation coach, when all the new standards changed in 2009, 2013 was the first graduating class that had to come through new standards and graduation requirements. And so part of that was the Department of Ed was encouraging schools around the state to look at a graduation coach position to help with the counseling department, because you're going to have elective focuses, lab sciences, a new math every year, as far as trying to meet all those new requirements on top of everything else the counselors have to do. So my role sort of changed a little bit. I mainly was 10, 11, and 12th graders when I started, and now I'm strictly focused on 11 and 12th graders. So Jamie at one time worked with ninth graders as the transition coach.
Yeah, so like helping them understand the difference between middle school and high school.
So we worked side by side closely until she went back into the classroom after giving birth. And so for me, I already going to have an idea of those rising juniors. I'm already going to know who they are as far as who's behind on credits. That targeted population, which would be those juniors who are 12 and under credits. And so from there, we're looking at trying to catch them up on the credits, the credit recovery, and looking at their age, because sometimes we're now running into juniors who are turning 18, or they're turning 18 in the summer coming in junior year. Can we beat them to 18 so we can make sure that they don't drop out? And so it gives me a chance to work closely with teachers, with administration, and the counseling department. And I will say this, and I say it with all my heart, I love what I do because I get a chance to be in the trenches and work and maneuver with the kids and the parents, and get a chance to have lots of good conversations about their future. I want to drop out, things like that. So I think skills through working at Woodridge, through the mental health side, the DCS side, the juvenile court side. So I get a chance to bring all those skills in to meet those students where they are, to hopefully one day they can graduate and be successful.
And I would add to that, like a lot of adults our age and older and don't understand the things that kids are going through nowadays, because it is so different with them growing up. And when I did that role, the idea of having an adult that wasn't a teacher, because sometimes kids are afraid to talk to their teacher or explain what's going on, and then sometimes kids aren't always forthright with their parents. It's a good role to kind of get everybody to come together on the same page and understand the importance of education and then moving forward, to get them to really know what possibilities are out there for them.
Yeah. And my motto is, kids don't care what you know until they know that you care.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so I've learned, how can I hook them? What is something that they and I may have in common? Whether it's fishing, whether it's eating fried chicken, whatever it might be. Like, he is not cuckoo or crazy. He laughs, and what makes me happy is when I get those students who I just need to talk. They got a safe space, and it could just be something going on at home, or they're like, I'm out of here, I got to go see Mr. Jones. And so I've learned, you got to meet kids where they are. And it's really hard because you're trying to teach 35 students. You got an hour and a half. I don't have time for that. And so I've learned, kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And when you know that you hooked them because they see that this person is genuine about me. Yeah. And then I've seen that work, lots of magic, on top of giving them candy when they come to my office.
Yeah. That always helps.
I get candy too.
Right. She steals my candy. She never did.
So if you, two things I have, social media and these kids. What are your thoughts about that?
It's,
I'm gonna let you start.
I know it's a nightmare. I even see it with my daughter's 5, and I even see it with her. It's a struggle. It's damaging. It can also be a way to connect with people. So there's benefits and negatives. The kids just have a hard time understanding. You know, if a kid called you a name back in the 80s, 90s, early thousands, you know, when we had the Nokia phones, like it wasn't so bad because it was gone in a minute. And now it's, even though they say Snapchat disappears, someone takes a screenshot, they send it all around. And kids have a hard time not seeing that and then taking it on as part of their persona, or as part of what it is. And they have a very narrow focus of certain things because they're only following or they're only getting certain things from the algorithm. They're only seeing certain friend groups, and they don't actually necessarily talk to each other in the classroom anymore unless you force them to, because they're only used to their friends. And we especially saw that coming back from COVID, when everybody was online. You know, you're only online, you're like, oh, the world is at your fingertips. But it's not when you're only looking in one place. And that's what I see a lot with the kids now.
And with me, because I'm not in the classroom, I do get a chance to hear about the stories. The teacher took my phone, well, I was just doing this, so I was just doing that. And I think with me, when they come and see me in my office, I give them a chance to see if they're going to stay on their phone. Because everybody's in class, so who you're talking to, because you should be learning algebra 2 or chemistry. And so I'm like, a couple of times I'm doing what they're doing, even though I'm not. So it's like, oh, we're going to talk. Oh, so I'm going to put my phone down since you're ready to talk, so I'm going to have you put your phone down because I'm talking to you. So I want you come.
Put it right here.
Right there. You know, because there's a time and a place, because if you're probably going to do it in the classroom and here, you're going to probably do it when you drive. You know, and that is, I guess with me, I've been on the side or the lane of, they said this about me, and they said this about me, and they posted this about me. And so when you're thinking about self-esteem, they called me the inappropriate word. They took this picture. You know, I've had some. I said, why would you send an inappropriate picture? Or why would you? Once it goes, it spreads like wildfire. You know, and so so I really have sympathy. Because I tell students all the time, mom, dad, grandmother, whoever has custody of you, is before you at the desk teaching. So if you're not gonna, you need to look at your teacher as mom or dad. So put the phone up, because you probably would not do that if they were in the classroom. And so with me, you know, I get a chance to see more of the fighting and the arguing, and you know, because I'm not in the classroom like Jamie is, you know, and I just think it is a big distraction, because I will say I don't know any phone numbers like I used to in the 80s.
Yeah,
I like what is that phone number? So I have to depend on my phone, you know, at times, you know, but it can be so destructive. Social media today in this generation.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I could call my grandparents' phone number. Both of them had passed.
Right.
From St. Louis.
Right.
Where they didn't live for 20 years before they passed because they retired in Texas. Like, I can remember that number, but I couldn't tell you anything.
I used to know my home phone growing up.
5386.
But you know, I don't know if you've seen the news about the different schools that have passed the policy.
That was my next question.
High,
Tennessee High
is one locally that passed the no phones
No
or
phones, yes.
smartwatches or anything for students during the school day.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an interesting study to see how that turns out, because we have to have our phones to be able to even log on to our computers.
Yes.
We get a one-time code every time we have to log on.
So that our phone, make sure no one else got access to our laptops.
Yeah, so are we going,
I
like,
love it.
I don't know how that's going to work necessarily for how that would even work in our district. And our students are on computers a lot now. We've done a lot of stuff with computers, and they can still
They don't have that code, do they? Which would be great,
No,
but they don't.
No,
Okay.
they don't have a code. It's just staff.
Yeah.
Like
The two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Two-factor
Yes.
authentication.
Yes.
And then, but we're sending them off to college, ETSU, wherever, Carson-Newman, UT. They need to use their computers. They use it as a resource. A lot of times, students will complete entire assignments on their phone nowadays. So I think it's fun. It'll be interesting how we, as a society, develop that balance. I don't know.
Yeah. I had a student, we went to the career services and they gave them like a USB thing. And she was like, I've never used
what
she
is
was like,
this?
what? I'm like, how do you save stuff? And she's like, everything's on Google Drive
cloud,
or something. She's like, I save everything on the cloud. And I'm like, you don't know what this is? Like, she didn't know what it was.
And
I don't even use the
Do you
cloud.
remember floppy disks?
Yes.
Yeah.
The big ones. not
Oh,
the-
I know.
She's gonna run out of space on the video.
Then
what you're gonna do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Then what do you do when
Pay
you run
for
out?
more?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I use the cloud for lots of
Right.
So has there been any chatter about Johnson City schools going to no phones?
Okay, I haven't heard.
He's
I
on
know all the
vacation
things,
still.
You should just ask me.
Okay.
There's been discussions about having because right now at Science Hill, teachers have individual policies for phones in their classrooms.
Yes.
Some teachers collect them at the start on their board, and they have a slot. Everyone has a slot. They do their attendance that way. Some teachers have a box where they all have a lock slot, whatever. But there's been talk about doing, and this last time I saw this, it was in Massachusetts, but they had little individualized pouches that zipped and locked as the students came in, and then the kids could hold their phone in a locked pouch all day.
Yeah, I've seen that they do that at comedy clubs.
Yeah,
So,
right,
because they don't want
record
people
them
recording the
saying
comedy
appropriate
thing.
things.
So you lock it up and you can carry it with
carry
you.
The
it
bag
with
is
you,
just- yeah.
But
But
then
they-
you have to get the special magnet lock at the end of the day and unlock it.
Oh.
But like,
Yeah.
you got 2,500 kids coming into the school. How long is that going to take?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Unless the teachers have it.
Okay,
Right.
stop. But
But I would not be. You're right. I would not be. I would not want
yeah.
that.
I don't want to
Right.
add that.
And-
like that's
And
never-
do the bags block?
I think
like,
they
call-
do maybe block signals.
So, okay.
like they can't
'Cause
go
I was
off,
like-
it's a whole thing.
I was like, I'm
And
not
then-
locking my phone. I just
Or
put it.
I
didn't-
forgot mine. I forgot my phone today.
Oh, I left
Yeah.
it at home. But
Yeah,
then it
sorry.
goes off. What consequences?
Or
Yeah.
the one that got me was when I remember taking phones, and then I was out of there before it got all crazy. But
Yeah.
give me your phone, and they give you
No.
the dead phone,
Right.
or they give you the
Oh,
dead
they
phone.
do.
Yes.
They have-
Yeah, and then they've got the
Wow.
real
They got
phone
the
that they
real
kept.
phone,
Sorry,
yes.
here you go. I'll come back
Yeah.
and get into the day, and they don't.
And
Wow.
see, I was not in the classroom in 2015. I went to the transition coach position, and then in 2019 I came back. We were there for half the year, and then it was COVID. So, and then I was remote for the year following. So when I really had kids back in the classroom, I don't want to take your phone. I don't want to have the responsibility for it. I drop mine all the time.
Yeah. Why would I
anything
want
to do with
30
yours?
more?
And also, as a student myself, when I'm writing a paper, I like listening to music when
Right.
I'm working on something. And if that's what makes you better at productivity, at ideas, I don't want to deny the kids that. Are there times when I need silence and I need to put it away as a distraction? Yes, but that's also part of teaching responsibility
Right.
and growing up and all of that,
Yeah.
which I think we need to do. And I would be nice if parents would support them.
Well, that
Or the parents.
Is that the
real
next
quick, if
question?
you know, this
Or parents go back and say, I didn't have a phone. I was in the class. I did my work.
Yeah.
I got
I
it right
was
home.
You need to get a hold of me.
There's
So
a phone.
I'm going to bring some 80s and early 90s and late 90s back to you. I didn't do it. You're not going to do it. But we know how some of the parents you cannot be their friend.
Yeah.
You cannot be their friend, and that is a big
Yeah.
thing I see a lot of. Is yes, you want to love and protect your child, but mom, dad, we have it here, and so that becomes a big issue. Is parents now coming to the school to bully faculty administrators to get phones and things like that, and that's just another topic of discussion.
Yeah.
So
That was my question. What advice, when we were talking about kids and struggling, what advice would you give parents about whether it's phone responsibility or
Social media.
social media or academic responsibility?
Parental controls. You have to know what your kids are doing. If you have a good idea of what they're doing, and most phone companies have control where you can turn it off between the hours of 10 and 7 a.m. or the school hours, so it's only on for them to use during certain times. That's helpful. But I mean, a lot of times kids are getting texts from parents in the middle of the classroom, and that's, for me, if I text somebody, like, I go to sleep at 7:30 at night. So, I turn
gotta get you on.
What's my bedtime? So, I always just put my phone on silent, but I assume people do that also. So if I wake up at 2 a.m. and I have an idea, if I don't send it, then, so I understand the need of, it's right here, I can send it. But, if we don't show that restraint, we can't do it. If you are a pilot or a train driver or a bus driver, are you using your phone and checking it while you're safely taking me wherever I'm going?
Right.
I certainly hope not.
Or doing my cataract surgery. Are you
right? You use that right here.
Hang on, let me double check. Don't just say it.
Or even surgery, I
so many
remember
things
this from my C-section. I won't say who the doctor was, but it was great. He asked me, "What music would you like to have while we're doing your procedure?" And I was like,
get the baby out. Get the baby out.
Here, don't just give me the drugs that I'm going to forget. And so he pulled up his phone and put it on. And I'm thinking, is that his gloved hands?
Right. Seriously. It's like, didn't you scrub in already?
Right, what's happening? And so,
yes.
even in the OR, we're there. We're doing it. Oh, gosh.
I think with me, because again, I'm not in the classroom, so kids come in and managing their emotions or whatever it might be. When I get a chance to see them, one of the things that I do, primarily with math, the algebra 2 and the senior math, I will go to those teachers who want me to come and speak about failure is not an option. And one of the things I do is talk about how many minutes, seconds, days, hours, weeks are in a semester. And I get your phones out and let's do the math. Get to your calculator. How many weeks are in a semester? How many minutes are in a week? And the numbers that they come up with. We're just doing basic math, and I said, you get the chance to use your phones in the classroom. Now put your phones up, turn them off. I said, because you're going to do it different. You're going to show up different. You're going to be different. And so trying to encourage them that way, I said, because you can't be on your phone learning algebra 2, which I think is by far the hardest math of the 4 that you have in high school. And so I try to get the students to see the biggest thing, or parents, they got to come different, be different, show up different, do it different, mom and dad, because if not, it's going to be a repetitive, long 4-year journey trying to figure out this phone, social media piece, what they should be in school learning, and just being respectful of the teacher in the hour and a half that they're going to be in class learning.
Yeah.
So
I just took a group of kids to Europe from the school on a non-sponsored school trip, but I have pictures of them just taking pictures of themselves doing selfies at different locations. It cracks me up. So we're at the Mediterranean Sea, get in the water, swim, enjoy time with each other, and they're standing on the beach taking selfies and making sure they have the perfect pose. And it was really funny because I'm not gonna lie, I took pictures of myself too, but not while I was trying to walk around and see the things in the museum and do all that stuff. But I mean, kids really are tied to that, and they go through withdrawal not seeing.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, and we're in the classroom for about 87 minutes to 90 minutes per class, and I'm not sure they could handle not having it that long, let alone the whole day. I don't know how that would work.
My son just finished boot camp with the Navy, and I just knew for sure he was going to turn that phone in day one and never pick it up.
No.
And he said, "Hey, Mom, we get our phones on the weekends as long as our unit does what they're supposed to do." He said it's because they found out that if they don't give the sailors, cadets, their phone, there is an increase in potential suicide. I'm like, Really?
That's,
And he got his phone as long as they were right. So during a block of time throughout the weekends. And he said, or something else I'm going to add to that, oh my gosh, I forgot what it was. But I'm thinking, so if you are training soldiers, regardless of what level they are, soldiers, what happens when they're out on a field? What happens if they're actively in a zone? Do you say, wait a minute, I'm having some moments. Let me take out my phone and listen to some meditation music while, things are happening all around. I'm like, really? So, even to that level, gotta have that phone.
We were at the beach earlier this summer. I dropped my phone in the water at the mini golf place, the blue water. And so, of course, first thing I did was Google, what do I do when I drop my phone? With your phone? You have to turn it off for 24 hours. 24 hours.
Did you not put it in rice?
Yeah, put it in a bag of rice.
That's actually not a good thing, I read,
Really?
because the rice can get in there, or the rice powder residue, and they said that's actually really bad. So you're better off putting it in a high ventilated. See, you're learning something. High ventilated area, but leave the power off, even if you think you can turn it on for 24 hours at least. And it's been working fine since. But that was a long 24 hours.
Yes.
I use my phone for Google Maps and Waze and bank account to see which money, you're using it for room check-in nowadays. All of that.
Every check-in, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. And my husband takes bad pictures, so
Yeah.
that day was lost.
Just kidding.
What's the policy at Ashley Academy?
They just have to keep it in their school bag during the day.
Yeah.
They can't. But my son wears a jacket even in 97 degree thing, and so he'll have it. I tell him don't do it, but he'll still have it in there. And then sometimes, like it's summer camp, which is a little bit different. But he texted me during the middle of the day, "Mom, Haley won't stop talking to me." And I said, "Talking?" And I texted him back, "Talking?" And he said, "Yeah, can you come pick me up?"
Oh, bless him.
And I said, no. So I'll get random or they'll try to text like, "I don't feel good." And I said, I'll have to say, "Go back, tell your teacher, and if they call me, I won't answer."
It's funny because that's actually what happens a lot of times is you'll say what the day's going to be, or they look at the daily agenda, and next thing you know, my mom's calling me out, or I don't feel good, or whatever. But I will say, our policy is you're not supposed to have your phone out during instructional time. Instructional time is defined by, academic learning or whatever your teacher says it is. So, and for the most part, because I teach seniors, 99.9% of them do the right thing when they're supposed to. So
that's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a big difference than freshmen.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Huge
absolutely.
difference.
I remember
They
my.
use the phone trying to find out how to walk around school.
Oh Lord!
I should
remember
also
my
say
last.
there's only 4 8th graders.
At school?
So
Total?
yeah, so my son is one of 4
Oh,
8th
Lord.
graders.
Yeah,
So it's a lot easier to
Yeah, I see you. I see
keep
you. I
them
see you.
together.
Yes.
So
Wow. I remember my last year, I came back to the main campus and was doing some interesting job. And it was from 4 years at the alternative school where there were no phones whatsoever, nothing, to back up to the main campus, and phones were out all the time. And so if I had to, and I was working with kids you are about to be sent to the alternative straight, get your butt in gear, kids. Every word that came out of my mouth that was the slightest bit of not even discipline, but something about I need you to do different and be better. Recording. I got you, Miss Trees. And I'm like, what? All over the place. And that's when I walked out. I walked right up and out. Because I was like,
goodness.
this is crazy.
And that's the other social media thing. Everyone's trying to catch somebody.
Yeah.
doing
Oh,
something.
yeah,
It's going to make you
Yes,
famous
yes.
on TikTok
Right.
or
Oh, gosh.
whatever. And you're going to become a superstar. And do you remember that kid we had to do a home visit on? And his entire life plan was to record himself playing Fortnite. Do you remember? Yeah. Fortnite as his career for YouTube. And I was like, I know they have those videos out there, but they're out there already.
Someone's
And
doing that
honestly,
already. Yeah.
You know, that's not really gonna last forever.
Right.
Like these kids that are YouTube
Yeah.
stars that their parents make them do stuff, and then they do funny things, but then they grow through puberty and they're not so cute anymore.
Right.
What are they doing?
Exactly
You know,
right.
like
Put that baby face filter on. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something. It's something else.
I saw the thing where it's changing, the headphones are changing the shape of people's heads. Like they have dents in their heads from the headphones because they wear them like 14, 18 hours a day.
Well, and think about it.
Yeah.
These little babies have these on, and they still have that little soft
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so these are like adult men now, and they have like big
that
dents
little
in their
dents.
head. Yeah.
Oh my God, we can recognize them.
Yeah. So, yeah, do something else. That's
Boy,
already
right.
that's already been done.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh.
Scary.
Well, okay, so we've talked about school. We've got that. What's our next little area? How about I know. We got to talk a little bit about race. So, because I like to talk about race, that's just me. But both of you guys came from areas where you moved into places where the racial content was very different from where you came from.
Yeah.
So, how did you adapt, and what kind of impact has that been?
I think with me, I grew up in public housing, you know, and it was not a high-rise setting like Chicago. So our setting was more like Keystone or Carver.
Okay.
And actually that was the name of the housing area I grew up in was Carver Park also.
Ah.
And it's so strange when I first moved here, I dropped the guy off at Carver and I see this adult walking and I'm like, I don't say his name, you know, and someone I grew up with.
Here?
See,
no way.
and I've seen him since 6th grade.
Oh my God.
And
I didn't know
called her
that.
name and she was like, Maurice Jones. Because no one called me by my first name unless it was an adult and I knew it was important. Everyone called me by my middle name. You know, and so growing up sort of isolated, but the dynamics of my elementary, middle school, and high school, you know, it was sort of balanced, you know, and so I had that interaction, you know, there, then especially going to the University of Illinois with over 30,000 students there, you know, and so moving here for me, I was shocked, but I was so zoned on trying to focus on training that I didn't really get a chance to venture until I actually stopped training and started working and seeing, you know, and so it was a big adjustment for me, you know, and so because one of my favorite childhood experiences when I played Little League Baseball, I played with 2 other blacks, 2 whites, and 10 Hispanic kids. And the name of our team was called Police of all
Police.
Police. And no one could beat us. And we were that good, you know. And so even there in the actual not the captain, but the coach, they were both Hispanic. And so I got a chance to eat, you know, Hispanic food, you know, things like that. So like Jamie was saying earlier, not seeing a lot of those things here. So I could say sort of through the years, seeing more diversity, you know, in this area, especially in Science Hill. You know, where we see more of our Liberian, you know, or African student body population, or students moving in from areas of New York. I'm like, how'd you find Johnson City? New York and Pennsylvania, you know, even some from, you know, when I hear someone's coming from Illinois, Chicago, it's like, hey, you know, that's where I'm from. And so it's been a big change, you know, and I'd probably say for the good, you know, because there are more faces I see in the area now. So
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. I was surprised by the lack of diversity. I guess not really surprised. I mean, you know, you're moving in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Like, I guess you're not thinking there's going to be a lot of people. But I grew up with a lot of different religious backgrounds, different people of color, like just very, very diverse area. And like, I can think about my elementary school, and it was maybe more predominantly white. I think we had 4 or 5 black kids at the school, maybe a couple of Indian kids, and then you went to middle school. And I went to a middle school that was actually a lot more diverse. We had 3 middle schools, and they rotated where the gifted kids went. So they didn't have high test scores, so they kind of had, you know, because it was 6 through 8, and that way their test scores kind of balanced out. And I went to one that was a lot more diverse. And then when I got to high school, I had a really good set of friends or people that I knew from different backgrounds. Like, you know, when I talk about people here, I'm like, where are all the Jewish people? Like, I don't understand why I can't find my, you know, soup. You know, everything I do is related to food. Truly. But you know, like growing up, like I'm going to bar mitzvahs, I'm going to bar mitzvahs, and you know, like I'm doing those things. I knew kids. One of my best friends is Filipino. Like, if he was here, people would probably call him like think he was Mexican because people don't know a lot of Filipino people here. I don't know, very few. And my core group of friends growing up, there were 6 girls. I'm counting on my hands. So 3 of us were white. I had a friend who was half white, half Korean, a full Korean friend, and then we had the redhead. I know that's not the same.
They're their own category.
That's their own category.
But they're their category all their own. But like we always were together, so we did a lot of different things. And I can honestly say I feel like I was really lucky to have the opportunity to know a lot of different things and even learn about different cultures. You know, everyone has a Sweet 16, right? And you go to the parties and you learn different things about different backgrounds, and it was really, really fun. And so when I moved here, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, who am I friends with? Like, I don't know anybody.
We usually ask that question. When was the first time you had a friend of a different race?
Yeah.
So
I would say probably still elementary school because you're friends with the people in your class.
Yeah.
And I would say I was friends with Darius Adair. We always try to find him on Facebook too.
That's a great name.
You know, it's a great name, and he was so cute.
Shout out to Darius right now.
Wherever you are, we are looking for you. And it's so funny because you remember the names of people that you went through school with, and I remember one kid. When I first grade, this is something that I was tested and then put into that gifted program, and this particular student said to me, "What are you doing here?" First grade, because I was not from the wealthy part of the area, and so it was assumed because I came from the wrong side of the tracks that why would I be in this class? And so I remember that kid's name too.
You gonna shout out to that kid?
No.
Yeah.
And I think mine was like, you know, like an experience where I dealt with that issue was my junior in high school. We were invited to Carnegie Hall.
Now, is this you as a school, track team, choir?
This is me as symphonic band. So I play the trombone.
Oh, look at you. Didn't know.
The music, Carnegie Hall, you got to come. You can't just play.
You got to be ready.
Hops, was it?
Hot cross buns. No, none of that. It better be Persona.
Fifth grade. No, you had to come with the real deal. And so the music, Mr. Sampson gave us was very difficult. And the 5 pieces, but the middle piece was probably 5 pages long, called Praise Jerusalem. And it was a very difficult piece. And so we got that music in August for a March concert. That's how difficult it was. And I remember we could have businesses that could help donate to us or to our account to get there. And I'll never forget, we were there practicing during the school day, and Mr. Sampson asked my address, and in the middle of the band. And I was sharing this with Jamie before I got here, and I get an address, and I'm in the high band, top symphonic band. So I'm in there with the gifted, the valedictorians, salutatorians, you know, and this trombone player, I'm going to say his name, after he asked for address, he said, "Is that the projects over there? Or is that the projects over there?" And I had to sit in that for a minute because I've never been confronted with that. Even though I lived with my grandmother, because she lived right by the high school, she bought a house, and I remember the band, Mr. Sampson said, "Oh, we don't need that in here." And I'm saying in my mind, "Yeah, we don't," because he had a metal plate in his head, and he had just had brain surgery.
Stop it.
And I was going to shaboing him so hard in that metal plate with the trombone in that the Holy Spirit led me to my case, and I put my trombone up, and I left out. And he was out of class. You won't be able to go to Carnegie Hall. I said, "I don't need Carnegie Hall. I need, Went to my guidance counselor. We cleared it up, But that was my first real experience, not really race, but still can isolate me, in the projects, because we didn't have any whites that I knew that grew up where I live, and so that was like my first real confrontation with someone. But I wasn't going to hit him in the play because I knew better. I would have to jail.
You're soft.
But yeah, he had another play, and I was like, okay. So
that's a good story. I think we all had that story at some level of where we've had that interaction with someone of a different race. Yeah.
Wow.
So we won't be shouting out to that one.
no, we won't.
No shout outs to that one.
Because he's my Facebook friend.
That's good.
Oh yeah.
See, they got past.
Oh yeah, we got.
Good job.
2 days later, we're back. We was over it, So
We're gonna find Darius Adarius.
Darius Adair.
Adair.
Yeah.
Anybody out there, if you know Darius Adair, reach out, leave us a message.
One of our horrible high school reunions is coming up, and so I might actually go.
he might be there
Just
waiting
to see
to talk to
Darius
you.
Adair.
I'll put him in the podcast.
I know.
There you go.
My high school forgot to invite all the black people one year. I was like, I went to one, maybe the 15-year or 10-year high school one, 15-year high school. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I was like, why didn't they have a 10th? And then the 10 other, there was only like 10 black people in my class. So they were like, oh, they did. They did. They just forgot to invite some people. And I was like, oh, okay. They couldn't find our contact information.
Yeah.
We actually had a black student body president, William Bennett.
There you go. Shout
That's
out to
awesome.
William.
I think he might have won. I'm sure he won homecoming king too.
Nice.
There's no way he didn't. He's so
You guys,
What
I think.
about like teachers and authority figures? Like, were those people diverse for you?
yes,
For
but maybe not.
For me, I would
I mean,
probably say in elementary, our two only 5th grade teachers were black, Mr. Abel and Miss Blandon, and they knew every black kid, grandma, mama, because you get paddling back then.
Yeah.
Say, ooh, and then you go up to the door, you try to listen, you run back to your desk, and so those were two faces, even though I was not 5th grade at that school, those were faces that I would see, and it was so strange. 2 summers ago, I'm at home fishing with my buddy, and we're at his house eating fish, and he was talking, he does roofing. He said, yeah, I just finished Miss Smoots. I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Miss Smoots, my 3rd grade teacher, is still living? He said, yes, she is. He said, I'm going to take you to her house tomorrow. And I stayed in the truck. He knocked on the door and said, Miss Smoots, I got one of your former students here to see you. And she comes to the door, got her dark black hair then, but it's just gray. And I get there, and she's looking at me, and she's like, I don't recognize him. And I said, I was the fastest 3rd grader. She said, Anthony Shaw.
Oh my goodness.
And she invited me in, grabbed my arm. She was like, I think 88. So we're walking in. Try not to cry. And we're sitting down, and she was as sharp as a knife. We're talking, and I said, I want to apologize for causing you problems in class, especially talking about Arthur laughing. And she said, oh, poor Arthur. I just had to call DCS, because, body odor, things like that. Sharp as a nail. And she sent me a book to my address before I got here. We leave, and I go 2 blocks down the road, and I said, stop. My 8th grade teacher, she was black, Miss Payne, also track coach. And so she's out there looking. I said, "You're digging in the garden now?" I said, Anthony Jones. So I got a chance to see 2 of my teachers within an hour of each other. And when I decided to run track professionally and try to make that '96 Olympic team, I did a newspaper article to try to get some financial support. And so many of my teachers and classmates from high school sent me cards and money.
Wow.
Her card is the one that stood out the most. And it's so strange because the card was smaller, the card, and I remember the same size card in 1996. And she said, "Anthony Jones, we always knew something good was going to happen watching you run against all those kids lined up, and you would just run and beat everybody, and you didn't realize how frustrating you were making everybody." So I hope this helps you in your journey to becoming an Olympian. And although you gave me headaches, you need to know that my husband was your mom's insurance man. That's how I would get information to your mom. and so this is
Right.
3rd grade teacher, and I'm trying to make Olympic team, and
Still
it's
supporting.
reading the newspaper
Wow.
and sending something, even though I gave her hell on wheel. And then to see her in 2022 was
That's
an
fabulous.
unbelievable experience, about the impact, even though I wasn't doing well in the
Yeah.
class, so,
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do remember we had, teachers of color, teachers with diverse backgrounds. I remember one particular 8th grade. Our normal teacher was actually a substitute. Our normal teacher was promoted to assistant principal that year. They brought in a substitute. And looking back, like, we didn't think anything of it at the time, but in looking back, I recognize now why maybe he did this. But our sub was a black man. He was very tiny, little guy. And he wore a 3-piece suit and tie every day to the middle school with no air conditioning, mind you.
Oh,
It was
Lord.
awful. Dr. Torian. And he was strict. But in looking back at it now, I can see why he would dress that way, present himself that way, because he was kind of an anomaly as far as being a man of color in our class. And then I know in high school it was a lot more diverse. Some of my favorite teachers, Miss Hope, Mr. Hadley, Coach Bogan was my softball coach. And I've told Anthony this story many times. My dad got married to a black woman when I was 15, so that would have been my junior year. And my senior year of high school, I only needed 3 credits to finish, and so I wanted to take a bunch of electives, and I thought, I'll take African American history. It'll be great. I'll learn some stuff. It'll be interesting and fun. And my guidance counselor told me that I couldn't take that class. That class was for the black kids. And so I went to Coach Bogan, who was my softball coach, black man, and he got me in the class. But that was 94, 95 school year. So when you think about the recent history of that, and then the lack of teachers of color that you see in the classroom, you kind of wonder when that would change. And if you never see yourself represented in the classroom, why would you think you could be a teacher? And that's something that we talk about that a lot, is finding somebody that you connect with and who's that person.
Right. I preach that all the time. If I can't see me, it can't be me.
Right.
And that to me is so important. So 2 questions. With that, and the current state of this whole, I don't even want to call it critical race theory, but this in the state of Tennessee, we've seen Florida do it. What are your thoughts on not so much changing the curriculum, but limiting the curriculum to where we're not able to, banning of books? I'm not sure about the state of teaching black history in the state of Tennessee based on what happened in Florida. And I'll say it, I think our governor is on that same kind of line. How do you, as an English teacher, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming you do some literature, how do you bring the representation of other cultures into the classroom for your kids?
Yeah, so it's really, sometimes it's tough because, so I teach British literature.
Okay.
So, and technically the course is British and world literature, but let's face it, it's heavily British. The Brits took over the world. They colonized everything. I mean, that's what happened.
I was thinking about that in the
just like
shower this morning.
So is some authors,
Right?
like Dickens.
So, like, what are you, where,
I don't even
like,
know if Dickens
yeah,
is.
no, Dickens.
Okay.
He's right in there. He started as a serial columnist in the newspaper. You're spot on.
Okay.
But, you know, that course is a survey course, so that means we're covering a span of time, starting with the Anglo-Saxons. Well,
Of course.
any black Anglo-Saxons, we're talking Beowulf. So when you look at Beowulf, where does that go? And I always try to draw the connection of, well, Tolkien was a Beowulf scholar. He loved Beowulf. He translated it multiple times. He did a lot of studies with that. And then you're looking at how then Tolkien influenced the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. Because why are we teaching Beowulf to kids that have no idea, that they're not, you know, British heritage students? That's not what we're looking at. And they're always surprised at the connections that other authors have taken from there. And so we kind of do stuff with that. And then we move on to Chaucer, who wrote a lot of satire and made political commentary and religious commentary on things. And so how is that connected? Do you see anything here? And then we do add in at the very end, I always try to add in, well, I teach Othello. That's the Shakespeare we chose. So for those who don't know, Shakespeare, Othello is the Moor, who was a black Muslim convert to Catholicism in Italy, in Venice. And so there's definitely race issues there that we can bring up and talk about how those things kind of have changed, and do we see it today? Is it the same? What's different? And then we always do Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, which talks about apartheid. So that gets us into the world literature. And surprisingly, a lot of my students don't even know what apartheid is. They've never heard the word. They don't know anything about it. They're usually shocked at the fact that it was so recent. You know, because apartheid, Mandela was elected, I think, just off the top of my head, 92, 93. So, you know, that was the 80s. We're still living through apartheid. And they kind of look at some of those rules and make connections with, oh, that's kind of like this rule and that rule. And that leads to other conversations of, well, if you like that, maybe you would like this fantasy book, which has a different type of main character, a different type of setting, and moving on to that. But we, you know, as teachers, I think we have the responsibility to not limit students in what they're thinking about.
Right.
So it's not that I'm putting ideas in your head. We are having a conversation like we're having here. This is what's on the paper. Now, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
And I try to do that with all the students. And they come up with some really, really interesting things that sometimes I've never even thought about. And you're like, wow, okay. I'm going to steal that from you and use it next time.
Right. So now I'm not the English scholar, lit scholar, but the different authors that you moved from the beginning progressing up, are any of those black of color?
Just Trevor Noah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. And it's hard in my course specifically because it is British literature.
Yeah.
And so we do like British and Irish, and that's one of the reasons why we brought in Born a Crime, was because we wanted to have somebody who was different and represented different things. And I always do, I have a little poetry unit too. So again, though, it's British poetry, British Irish poetry. And then in the end of that unit, they have the option to get extra credit with doing some extra poems. And they have a list of British poets, but then I also throw in other world poets you should know. So I'm pulling in South African, South American, North American authors, other poets that really would be a great start for kids. And in a course like that, in a semester, you've got 18 weeks, sometimes 19 weeks, to throw a lot of stuff at them and hope that something sticks. And then maybe give them the drive to study someone more specifically, like go and check out Gwendolyn Brooks is one of my favorite poets. I love her. And they get Langston Hughes, they get some of that other stuff in 11th grade, but not, I'm trying to think the English 11 curriculum, I can't off the top of my head think of a Black author that's anything that's presented.
And there's no Black lit class.
No, but maybe
science
there
center.
should be.
Yeah.
Teach it.
Yeah, cool.
But
And I run into the same problem with chemistry. All the history, Democritus and Aristotle, all the way to Dalton, everything's 17th century. French, German, who got to do the science back then. So,
and I think in my head, it all started in Africa. Let's just be honest. And like, why isn't the beginning of any of that
here?
Yeah.
And I think part of it is time. Like, if we taught more of the idea of a classical education, you're not teaching in a linear fashion that way. You're teaching everything kind of as a whole. In most of the European math curriculum, for example, isn't algebra, geometry, algebra, statistics. It's maths. And they do all of that all the time at different levels of depth throughout school. So you're being exposed to lots of different things at once. And I do think that there's room for that. Now, that said, I love British literature.
See?
I'm sorry.
I did love
but
Canterbury
it's a lot of
Tales.
fantasy
I didn't
stuff. We're
read any
talking
of that.
about like fantasy, dragons killing
Right.
people.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
I have to say, I'm probably the worst. I remember when I was at Science Hill. Let's start at the beginning. I am the worst at reading, even in college, even in high school. If I could find like a little, here's a summary of that. Okay, let me read that. But I remember I was teaching, they were getting rid of all the books from the English department. And I went in, and I'll never forget, I think it was Miss, I see her face. I went into her, and I'm like, can I have this book? And it was like it was a world lit book that had all these great stories that I never read. And I said, because I really do want to read these things. It's in a bookcase now. I
haven't even looked at it.
haven't even looked at it.
No, it's hard. It's hard to read stuff that you don't find yourself in sometimes.
Well, I'm seeing that,
and
yes.
it really is. And that's where, Beowulf is one of those hero stories. And if you can't see yourself as the hero, then maybe that's not the story for you. So we really look at it in a very analytical way. Why, if this was written at this time period, this wasn't necessarily in this area at this time period. So this was an oral story. What happens when you have oral stories? They're changed. If something's translated from one language to another, how does that shift what it is? And if I'm the boss, I'm looking at you, King James, and I'm like,
Bible!
I'm looking at you, King James, and I don't like one part of something, and I take it out, and then it goes down the line to everybody else. That's not what was originally written. And how do you know what was originally said or spoken or written?
Yeah.
You have to kind of do your own thinking and research on that.
And for me, I think, you're up in 2 seconds. I think that I put this out on Facebook all the time. Tell the truth. And I think a lot of times, like Othello, I never knew that this man was black until I was an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Never knew, because it's like, let's just read it. And if you never knew that the Moors were black people in history, because my history teacher never said they were
Well,
black.
and they had people who were like, "Oh, Moor just meant this," and would try to say that it wasn't actually.
Technically, a Moor can be anybody of that religion from that area, so they probably had a lot more diversity than we want to recognize at this point.
Yeah.
Because they did have interracial marriage during that time, and when they look at some of the even Shakespearean scholars, people of color had position and status in Elizabethan society. We just kind of don't teach that. Don't move on to that.
Tell the truth.
But you when you look at the story, like they say, he is a dark-skinned Moor.
Clear, not the white man with the tan. Anthony, you're going to say something.
Because I'm not in the classroom, and I'm not teaching, and I'm not, under that umbrella of the curriculum what we can and cannot teach. But when I think about 52, you talking about banning books, what you can and cannot teach, or these labels, woke, and because we all are political. I am political. I know I better not bring a pumpkin pie to my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. It better be
dare
a
you.
sweet potato
How
pie.
Yeah.
dare you bring
I could be
that up?
political and drop a sweet potato pie in my grandmother, and she would cuss and throw that pie and say, you know, what? Can we just get back to some basic? This here, where's this at?
This
You know,
conversation, yeah.
and I think that's where my heart sometimes bleed, because we were so all at one time innocent. We were innocent kids playing, not knowing anything. What your color mean? None of that. We grow up, we're taught how we grow up in our homes, our values, you know, and it amazes me. You are banning books around the country. For the life of me, I have no idea what the end result. I mean, there's an agenda, but I just never thought it would get to a point that we are saying libraries take those books,
Take those books away.
and take those books out. I just never thought those would be the front and center when there's more pressing issues going on, you know, in this world, in this country. Why can't we just sit and talk?
Plus side of social media is that when a book is banned, it's actually read more
Right.
Yeah.
Of
a
course.
lot of times
Right.
because people, well, why is that?
Why? Let me see
Go
what they're
back
talking
and
about.
Read that and
You know.
check it out. And so
How,
that is
does
interesting.
does Sun still follow that banned book thing? Like, is that a state policy?
The board, it was a state policy. The state passed some kind of law. I can't
Okay.
remember the number. I would have known it.
I know the elementary schools had to take
And we
out.
had to take out the classroom
lot of-
libraries or catalog the classroom libraries and have a list. And if there was anything that someone wanted to challenge, they could. And then there was a review process.
Right, I do
If
know
it's
that.
in our school library, it can be on our shelf as a book we loan kids. Me and several other teachers chose to just remove our classroom libraries. So kids can go to the library.
The
and get
whole
book.
library.
I took out my whole classroom library.
Wow.
Because I had probably over 1,000 books. I had so many books. Like I don't have the time to do that. And if you don't trust students who are 17, 18 years old to make a decision for themselves about whether or not that's a book that they want to read, then I'm not gonna.
I hear you.
I'm not gonna deal
Yeah.
with it. And so we do go to the library for them to get their books. They can buy a book from home, bring a book from home, get a book from the public library, so they can still read whatever they want in my classroom.
Gotcha. It's
And
just not provided by
It's
you.
just not provided by me or the school.
No, it's cool.
And as a parent, I know what my kids are reading.
Yeah.
At the end
So
of the day.
if at the end of the day, if you talk to your kids, if you
Yeah.
speak to your kids, if you ask them what's going on, you can know more about them. And if you don't agree with something that your kid is wanting to do or the way they want to live your life, you still have to find a way to connect with them and balance. And maybe it's that you never bring up anything political about what they're doing. I mean, my brother is, well, how old am I? He's over 30 now. I'm just going to say he's over 30. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm over 40. And he is not necessarily living the lifestyle that my stepmom and my dad seem to support. And they just talk about kind of surface things. And in their own way, they support him in his musical endeavors that are great. I love it. It's awesome. But also, it's one of those things where they try to still have a relationship, but they're not, and he knows they're not 1,000% supportive of him. And I always say, how can you vote for somebody that is hurting your kids?
Right.
I don't understand it. So we try not to talk about that stuff in certain situations because it can be hard in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just tough.
We are getting close to time, so
Okay.
maybe we ask if y'all have questions for each other.
We know everything about each other.
Gosh.
Let's
We
think
played
though.
tennis together, doubles together.
How did you guys meet? We'll make that and then
Tennis.
and
Do
then
tennis.
think
Do
about
tennis. Do
and then
tennis.
think about a question for you.
Yeah, do tennis at the old tennis courts lessons at ETSU.
Lessons at ETSU.
It's just seeing faces out there and meeting people.
Getting out in the community.
Right.
And then finding later, like we always played tennis together.
Right.
But then when I started working in science, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, right. Then she's going to tell me, you're going to buy this house.
I did.
I'm like, you don't know my mother because you don't look like me.
I am his mother.
That's how you know. That's how you like, I didn't want to buy a house.
Did you want the one with the creepy basement? No.
So through tennis, that's how close we are. But then I was not looking for a home, and so so we're all on the Tree Street looking at 4 or 5 homes, and this one had a parrot. Parrot was as big as the house. It was
a parrot.
It was a bird.
It was huge. It had a drape over it, and it had this extra kitchen, and then a dirty basement. It was dirt, and then she said, "Oh my God, Anthony cabinets!" I was already in the car. so I looked up Dahlia Martinez. Love her.
Yep, love her.
Dahlia, yes, I'm talking about you.
We'll have to let her shout out.
My tennis buddy is the realtor, and I'm like, "Why are we going to see this house?" Because that was not on the list. Well, it was just in the area. Then she pulls up. She's knocking on the wood and the floor. It's like, oh yeah, good body, good structure. Oh yeah, I can see that. 2 friends who are teachers at Science Hill trying to tell me where a fixer-upper, and then Dahlia said, oh, move in here, so get home. Meet me at Firehouse. So I go to Firehouse. It's like, man, I know which house you really want to buy. Which one? She said, Dahlia, and so I end up buying the house, And
that's the house you're in now.
That's the house I'm in now.
Okay.
And she's 1 block over from me.
Yes. I didn't know that.
So she's got a key. She takes care of Bella.
Yay.
And so, but at the end of the day, I don't really have any questions. I will tell you, it is good to have colleagues, friends, and colleagues. T.R. Dunn, I'm going to send a shout out to you because T.R. Dunn had a live podcast on Facebook this morning. And he was talking about friends are people who love you. There are people who love you, and so knowing I got colleagues at my job that I could trust in and outside of work, friends who are colleagues in and outside of work, and so I would go to the back of the moon. I would back to the moon and back, for Jamie because she gives me advice. What do you think? She's like, give me my Tupperware back because you got all my Tupperware. And said, you go next door and get me a good deal. Like, no, I'm not. And so we just connected Pennsylvania to Illinois by way coming to Johnson City.
Love it.
So
That's
I couldn't
great.
ask for one of my best friends.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
No, I agree. It's nice to have people. I have a lot of friends here. I've lived here almost 30 years, and coming to an area where you don't know anybody, it's totally different than where you grew up, than what you're used to, than finding your people. So it took me a few years before I started even playing tennis, but I met one person, well, come play tennis, and then you go do that. And getting out there to meet the people and find the different things and, learn about the community is really a big difference. And then I found my people. Like I found the people that were, the ones who had similar or even very different backgrounds, and that we can laugh and communicate and cut up. And we probably have lunch all the time. We do things all the time, but and it's nice to be able to have somebody that you can trust. And I always want my students to feel that way with me too. Bringing it back to the fact that I am a teacher. You can come and tell me anything. I'm I'm not gonna tell you. Well, no, I might tell you are crazy, but I'm gonna still support you.
I'm gonna love you anyway.
You're my student. I love you anyway. I might be glad to see you leave, but you can always, contact me and come back if you need help with something.
You're gonna be like his teacher who
he
gave help, but she still supported him.
Right.
Yeah.
And the good thing there is seeing all the kids I've ever had contact with or cases on. This is your kid here? Come on.
Yeah.
I was at the store and the mom was looking for on clouds for her son 2 days ago, Monday, and walked by me. She's on the phone, very loud, and I said, "Hey!" And I said, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "I'm looking for some shoes," and I had 11 on clouds in my. She says, "I'm looking for some 11 on clouds." I said, "Here's your son," because I had a case on her oldest son, and she's like, "I see you everywhere." So I bubbled over when I had any relationship, even if it's kids I had to send away to get treatment to keep them safe,
Yeah.
that I could see them out here, and they was like, "You are always wanting to give someone a hug." I said, "Because that's who I am." And so to see that they're doing well, and see that you can look back and, go to a Mexican restaurant in Gray. I went in Saturday, and one of my kids owns it.
Oh, wow.
Everything was free.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when
That's
you
great.
see, even if it was just one time, and the impact you have in their lives. And so at the end of the day, and that's what it's about, is how you can impact these lives, and hopefully they can go and change the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just
That
like
is
you,
great.
Michelle, you come in and you see one of your
Right.
students.
Walking in
Walking
right
in
now.
here.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
So,
That's why I teach.
Get free stuff.
Free stuff.
I went to the mall and got a
Free
free
food.
phone case years ago. It's my student.
right.
Get a little discount. Slide you a little extra fries.
I'm still trying
Thank
to
you,
get. I know.
students.
I'm still trying to get that student into plastic surgery residency. That's when it's really gonna pay off.
Well, I tell you,
That's when it's really gonna
for the
pay
world
off.
that didn't know, I did have cataract surgery last week, and I was scared to death. And I'm sitting there with both eyes closed, sitting there waiting on something. And somebody slides in, and they're like, "Hey, Miss Teresa, it's Nurse Ratchet." Right? And I had to open my eyes and find out, who is this? One of my former students. Shout out to Terry Shue. Terry, I know you got married, but I cannot think of your last name, but you know who you are. So you see them everywhere, and it is a wonderful thing. So thank you guys for what you do. I miss it. But this was
Not that much.
I ain't coming back, but I do. I do miss it.
Be a
But
little more challenging.
listen, exactly.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you so
This
much.
has been great, folks. We hope you guys enjoyed it. I told you, I think it's one of the best ones.
Until next time.
Right. Bye.